I'm Greg DePalma. You're listening to Prime Sports Golf, brought to you by ProGolfWeekly.com with Jeff Shane and Joe Cook on the Prime Sports Radio Network. On today's show, the playoff rounds continue to go cuckoo after Jason Day prevents Alex Noren from winning his maiden PGA Tour event on the sixth playoff hole early Monday morning. A wild week at Torrey Pines, which included how public hero Tiger made the cut and why JB became public enemy number one. How Tung Lee makes his case for future stardom, Rain Gibson high-fives his caddy with his fist, that and much more on Prime Sports Golf.
Is in bloom, the transmissions will resume. I try to keep us all down and hope that we will never see the truth around.
All right, thanks again for joining us for a great week of golf coverage, along with our partners at ProGolfWeekly.com for this Tuesday, January 30th. 2018. We've also, as usual, have everything you're going to need to get ready for this week's event on the PGA Tour, the Waste Management Phoenix Open from TPC Scottsdale. We've got the latest stats, odds, and, of course, our picks. And follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN, because that's when we'll let you know when these shows are available on demand. Of course, we'll have our commentary, and I'm not sure if any of the guys had any commentary this week, but I will ask them. But let's go ahead and get started on that. I'm going to introduce, first of all, PGAtour.com contributor. You can find his first look reports every Friday prior to every event on the PGA Tour, Jeff Shane. And Jeff, first, congratulations on the Jason Day pick.
Thank you. Yeah, I had to hit something at some point. So it
you
didn't
already
look
hit
so
one
good
before
after that opening 73, but
you hit Day GJ.
Yeah, because
how many do you want to win?
How many do you want to win?
I want to win them all. So anyway, did you tweet anything out on JB Holmes this week?
I did not. I'm one of those guys that thinks that you cannot look at everything in a vacuum. And considering that JB was in the heat, with a chance to tie for eagle, what made it look really stupid is that after all of that deliberation, JB Holmes decided that he was going to lay up, which is not going for a chance to get in the playoff. You could have laid up in half the time that it took. And so that part bothers me. But when you're in the heat of battle, and he is in the final group, he is not holding anybody up except his playing partners. And one can make the argument that Alex Noren got iced, but Alex Noren, was also in contention. It's a tough course. It's a U.S. Open level course. And, let's be honest, that final group took exactly 6 hours to play that final round. If JB Holmes had played a shot in 40 seconds, that group still would have finished in 5 hours and 57 minutes. So I don't think it's really right to focus on the isolated incident. There were backups at different tees. In the group ahead, C.T. Pon, back on the front nine, put two balls out of play, but they had to be found, identified as lost. Then he had to go back to the tee to re-hit from the tee. That was a drag on not only CT's group, but the group behind him, which included JB Holmes and Alex Noren. So I think that if you're going to look at isolated incidents, I don't think that's always necessarily the case. What was the average finishing time if you take every group, and who got in trouble and who because of that trouble held things up? Last year at a playoff event, remember the situation where Sergio was trying to decide whether to hit off the rocks because he was trying to get to the next round of the playoffs? That was kind of important. That's another payday, even if it's Sergio Garcia, the reigning Masters champion.
Yeah, but you
And
know why
in
everybody's upset. I don't think anybody really, really cared about the time. You know why everybody was upset. You do, right? Don't you? You know why everybody was upset. It's because
well,
he didn't go for it. It's because
well,
there was no reason in the world for him not to go for it. None
Yeah, that was
whatsoever that had nothing to do with money or any other reason. It had nothing to do with that, and that's what upsets everybody because we're supposed to play these sports to win. We're not supposed to play these sports under conditions. Now, if he would have been in the sand or in the rough, then that's a lot different. He had no excuse not to go for it other than money.
I was angry watching that too, just because he hits the ball a mile. He was just killing it with his putter all week. I mean, I didn't understand the decision. Know your strength. It's like, Tom Brady's got Rob Gronkowski open in the end zone on 4th and 20 and just takes off running or something like that. It was just an awful. What does he even have a caddy for? I don't.
Yeah, the caddy
I
is too. I agree. I've talked about that many times on this show before. A lot of these players need good caddies, and I think we underestimate the value of a good caddy. And if you had a good caddy, somebody that would have spoken up, maybe he wouldn't have had this problem.
Maybe he can use Rain Gibson's guy next week, or
maybe he should. You might have to put some sunglasses on. But yeah, that is, I think, the big reason. And look, the other thing too is 28 wrongs don't make a right. No question. We all know. And look, I don't even necessarily think it is JB Holmes' fault with the slow play, because if he's not going to get penalized, if nobody's going to get penalized over this, then how can you blame JB? Again, I think,
right.
Yeah, so I think what really angers everybody more than anything, I know for a fact is what angers everybody is that he laid up. No doubt in my mind. The fact that he's put 4 minutes laying up was just the icing on the cake of frustration. That was like, are you kidding me? See, I think if he would have went for it, nobody would have said a thing. Nobody would have said a thing if he would have went for it. But the fact that he laid up after making everybody wait infuriated everybody.
Laid up poorly at that.
Yeah,
that only makes it worse. Is his layup went into the rough. I suppose you contrast that to, I believe it was the Canadian Open. I could be wrong on the locale, but remember Charlie Hoffman is contemplating a shot down the stretch, and his caddy is suggesting, well, you've got bailout over here. You can set yourself up, walk away with a par, live to fight another hole type thing. And Charlie Hoffman looked at his caddy and he said, I'm trying to win this thing here.
That's what you want to, that's how you want to play. And that, that's unfortunately, that's not how you want your caddy to act either. But I don't know. I mean, caddies.
Well, it wasn't the 18th hole at that time either, so it was a big picture type advice from the caddy.
Don't you think though that caddies who aren't working with top players tend to maybe be more conservative because they really value that paycheck?
Well, they certainly do. I mean, there's no question that how your man performs is going to be reflected in how much you get at the end of the week. But there's also the dynamic of just relationship, and you have to kind of have an idea of what your man is thinking. If you're saying go for it, and your player is not, of that mindset. If he's more of a methodical strategist, you're not going to last very long in that job anyway.
No.
So it's got to be two guys that think relatively alike, leaning toward, every decision is going to, the ultimate veto power is going to lie with the guy with the stick in his hand. And so, but I think if you're giving advice that goes counter to your man's instincts, it's not going to be a very long relationship to begin with.
What do you think, Joel, that, and maybe this happens more in the future now that this happened in this situation and has become a big story, if you're Alex Noren in this spot in the future, are you going, or another player, are you going to be more cognizant of this type of situation and be like, well, I'll tell you right now, I'll be ready for that, because if something like that happens next time and I'm ready to go, I'm going to tell the golfer I'm going to go. I'm not waiting.
I mean, maybe you might expect a little bit of gamesmanship, but not 4 minutes waiting over. I can't say for sure that definitely changed the outcome. But he looked like he was pretty amped up when he took the hit.
Yeah, it was
straight over and into. I mean, he was fortunate to have even gotten in the playoff after that.
I mean, really, if you look at it, all his other shots on 18 after that, even though of course the last one went in the drink, but I mean, all the other ones were pretty good.
Yeah, well, he had to play the hole about 20 times.
Yeah,
he probably got pretty good at by the end.
And we talked about that last week, didn't we, Jeff? About this whole playoff situation and the same holes, and then all of a sudden we're going to a Monday morning finish. I mean, it's the only sport that does this, and it is kind of funny when it happens, when they're out there and nobody's there except a couple of employees of the golf course of the event. And the players, the caddy and the golfer, and it really is silly. I mean, what would be the remedy to that? I know you talked about some of the things that you would change regarding a playoff. What would you do? Is there anything that you can do to try to change the rules to make sure that no matter what, I mean, they're gonna have to go 15 playoff holes before I'm forced to play on a Monday because it's getting too dark?
There's really no other way to do it. Let's face it, it's January. The days are short, even on the West Coast.
Can you arm wrestle?
And that's not the nature of the game. I'm the guy that rails against penalty kicks in soccer. That's not soccer. To have a chip off or a putt off is not golf. You play a hole of golf, and if darkness arrives, then I don't know what else you can do. And let's kind of look back at the history of golf too. There was a time where if there was a tie, and it still happens in the U.S. Open, and it would happen in other majors for years and years and years, you would come back the next day and play an entire additional round, because really the way to decide a champion is over an entire round of golf. So,
what about par three? Can't they say, all right, well, we're going to judge these playoff holes one by one, based on sunlight. And if that means we got to par three this thing to death, then that's what we're going to do.
But I think that falls under the same category as what we were talking about last year, where if you played a par 5 over and over and over, that gives
But what would you prefer, though? You tell me. What would you prefer? You prefer that or coming back the next day?
I prefer having it decided over a set of holes. I'm not that dissatisfied with a Monday finish. I think these happen typically early or late in the year where sunlight is scarcer. You can't predict that there will be a playoff in the first place, nor how many holes there are going to be. We're in a really unique stretch where we have played 16 playoff holes in the last 3 weeks on the PGA Tour. The last time they had 4 consecutive playoffs on the PGA Tour was actually just 2 years ago, from the Travelers to the Greenbrier to the John Deere to the Open Championship. Those 4 playoffs required just a total of 10 holes, and that includes a 4-hole aggregate playoff at the Open Championship. So I just have to chalk this up as being something that's a perfect storm, so to speak, because if this was June and the days were long, we could get in 7, 8, 9 playoff holes if need be.
Well,
but unfortunately, it's January.
Well, you can change the rules based, again, every event. Every event. I mean, these PGA Tour rules as far as holes and things of that nature, in relation to the event, the people who are putting the event together, or does the people putting the event together have any say on exactly how they're going to determine the playoff situation regarding holes and things like that?
When it comes to the setup of the course and everything that has to do with the way the tournament is conducted, at some point before Thursday, the course and its management and everything that has to do with competition is handed over to the PGA Tour until the final putt drops.
Okay. Well, I mean, whoever I guess is in charge, that is that is their decision. It's their sponsors, and look, they had the warning from the previous 2 weeks with all those playoff holes. So it's not like.
But again, everything is really and a one-off. We just have happened to have 3 consecutive playoffs of 4 holes or longer. And
what I'm saying is they had a warning, but they had a warning.
Well, what does that mean? The fact that Hideki Matsuyama has won the last 2 Phoenix Opens in a playoff, does that mean that he's going to that he's going to be participating in a playoff this week? That's a random number.
No, but you prepare for that possibly happening before the event even begins. You say, okay, if this happens again, we can't afford. It's not good. Let's make sure that. And again, this is because what you proposed a couple of weeks ago regarding specific holes and so forth. That's how you would like to see it happen, but that's not what's happening. Okay, that's just a suggestion you made. So
right.
What they're doing now, that can be changed too. And so why not look ahead and say, yeah, I mean, look, this isn't good for our sponsors. This isn't good for the fans. People got to go to work the next day. They're going to miss the final. If times, it's January. The sun's going to go down earlier. Let's make sure if we get into another one of these playoffs again this week, we are going to make sure that, and we'll let the players know, we'll make sure you go on the par 5 the first time. After that, it's par 3 to death. And that's it. Because we got to get this thing done on Sunday. And that's all I can tell you guys. And if you're upset about it, then we'll talk about it after the event. But I want to do everything in my power to finish this thing on Sunday.
Well, but I think that is as much a competitive disadvantage as playing a par 5 repeatedly.
Yeah, but you're not playing it repeatedly. You had the par 5.
Right.
You
but
had
what
the par
I'm
5.
saying is, if but now you're saying, okay, we got the par 5 out of the way, par 3, par 3, par 3, par 3, par 3. Now you flipped. Now you flip the pendulum all the way to the other side, where driver is taken out of a player's hand.
Okay.
On multiple consecutive holes.
Who's in charge, the players or the PGA Tour?
The PGA Tour.
Okay, well, too bad, because we're paying you. Sponsors are paying us. Sponsors are not happy. Network's not happy that we're broadcasting this event at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Monday to finish this event. We can't do it. Complain with us later.
Did you notice what the TV ratings were for the Farmers Insurance Open on Sunday, even when Tiger was off the golf course early in the broadcast?
Well, whatever it was, what was it? I'm sure it wasn't very good on Monday morning.
It was going up against the Pro Bowl too. You got to remember that. This was up 137% over last year.
Okay.
With no Tiger Woods in the final half of the broadcast or the playoff. This was actually a very surprising to a number of us television number, considering that Tiger Woods was long gone and the broadcast had spilled into the Grammy Awards, which is not. I don't
understand. No. I'm talking about the fact that I think you're making my point. I'm talking about the people who are watching the event unfold on Sunday. A lot of those people can't watch on Monday morning. So don't take that finish away from them. Do everything in your power to finish on Sunday. while those people are watching. That's my point. So, but look, they're not going to listen to us anyway. So let's move on.
Well, and when you talk about sponsors are ecstatic. They had huge television.
Of
ratings.
course they did. They had nothing on Monday
So
morning,
you
but
can't-
they did on Sunday.
But you see I think the sponsorship comes away. Farmers Insurance is incredibly happy with the exposure that they got. And if it lasted an extra 20 minutes on Monday morning, that's the rub of the green, to use a golf term. Honestly, how many tournaments are postponed to Monday because of non-weather related?
Yeah, but again,
darkness?
but once again though, that's stuff out of your control. My point is you have a way to control it. I'd rather see them figure out a way that they can control it. See, I agree with you on things that's completely out of their hands. But if you've got a way to do it, and I don't even know if that, like I tell you, and I don't even know if everybody would be okay with that. But if you do it, see how it goes, worry about, okay, event's over, we got it through, let's get the feedback. And then if the feedback is, 80% negative, and here's why, okay, we gave it a try. Let's go back the other way. But, I feel sorry for the people that can't watch it on Monday, that went to the event on Sunday, and they were there all day, and then they got to go to work the next day and they missed it. Those are the people that I feel sorry for. When you have control to try and do everything you can to make sure that you get it done. I know NASCAR, of course, and if you're a NASCAR fan, you get these situations with these crazy ways that they try to finish to make sure that, well, we'll make sure that we only get one more restart and all that stuff, and that's why they're doing that. But that is something that I think does backfire. But they did get it in, you see. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that my proposal would work, but I'd like to see it tried. I might look at it myself and go, you know what, I really don't like that. To tell you the truth, I'd rather just them finish it. Sort of like NASCAR. I don't like the way they finish it just because they're trying to get it in before it gets dark or whatever. But I just think that there are different ways to try and give people as much satisfaction as you can. And I don't know whether, and of course golf, we can sit here all day with all the rules and all the other ways that we, like the 4-minute thing with JB that got us started on this. And this is, that really right there, if you think about it, this is, just imagine if that round, or the rounds in general, or if PGA Tour did their job right and made sure that the players did play faster, I don't think we would be even talking about this. They would have finished on Sunday. But the rounds are too long, right? That's the PGA Tour's fault. They're not. And what about that? Shouldn't they be speeding up these players?
I think that's apples and oranges. The tee times are set up to finish at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's your television window. And they book the starting times based on how long they figure that players will take to play the round.
Yeah, and how long they'll abuse the time.
Well, but the point is, you're trying to hit the final putt dropping at about 6:25 p.m. No matter when they start, the goal is to have the final putt in regulation drop about 6:25 p.m. So whether it took them 4 hours to play the final round or 6 hours to play the final round, that will already have been calculated by what time those groups start.
Okay.
With the idea of the final putt dropping at 6:25
All right.
p.m.
Well, then that sounds wrong to me. Then why not make sure that it ends at 6:05 p.m.? What's the difference?
Because then you have 30 minutes of dead TV time.
A dead TV time? What's dead TV time? I don't understand. Why do you have to go off at 6:30?
That means the competition will have finished at 6:05, and CBS has to fill 25 minutes before the window closes. They don't want that either.
No, but why do you have to end it at 6:30?
Because that's what the contract is. That's when CBS wants it to finish.
Okay. All right. Well, so here you go then. Then this is what then as far as CBS is concerned, and Golf Channel works with NBC. So as far as CBS is concerned, then if they're happy and satisfied with not ending some events sometimes because of that rule that they have, which for whatever reason they want that rule because they gain an extra couple of whatever points from not ending at 6:05 instead of 6:25. Then and they get to and then their viewers don't get to watch the finish of the golf event on their network, and they got to switch to another network the next day, and they're satisfied with it. Then okay, then there you go. Then,
but again, how many times does this occur during the typical PGA Tour season where you have an event that is not delayed by weather go so deep into overtime that darkness intervenes? I don't know that it happens once a year on average. It just happened to happen 2 days ago.
Yeah, well, again, that's two separate arguments. That's that one, and the other one is my proposal of changing, to par threes to speed up the process, which is completely a different topic. But the first one makes sense to me. If that's what they want, from what you just said, and the rounds go the way the rounds go, and they don't care. And they figure if they speed up the process and they're still going to get off at 6:25 based on when they're going to tee off, I get it. Then that's fine. That's the way they want to do it. But again.
And CBS adjusts that based on their programming. Sometimes they go straight from, they finish at 5:55, sign off at 6, and, go straight to 60 minutes or go to the local news or however it goes for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they have always scheduled Torrey Pines, and they do this at Memorial and a couple of other tournaments too. They prefer the 6:30 finish for whatever reason.
I'm sure it has ratings.
Maybe,
I'm sure it has something to do with ratings.
I'm sure it has something to do with ratings and probably something to do with lead-in to whatever follows. I'm sure that they wanted Torrey Pines, hopefully with a big name, to lead right into the Grammys, which it did, just not how they envisioned it happening.
All right. So, but hey, the big story is Jason Day, Joel. By the way, I should officially introduce Joel as ProGolfWeekly.com lead writer. And a big win for Jason Day, and he's done this before, Joel. He wins. He's. I think the last couple of because he hasn't won in almost 2 years. So the last time he actually went and started his run, he started it this way, where he didn't really show signs of breaking out, and then he had that first win, and then he went crazy. So whether or not this is the beginning of him getting his mojo back, and he is going to be at his optimum, level once again, I guess we'll find out. But he sure played well.
Yeah, he looked good. And, they didn't even know for sure that he was going to play. He had to pull out of the Wednesday Pro-Am back problem. He was showing some signs late in the year. I remember at the PGA Championship, he was in contention until just one really, really bad hole. He was T11 as first two events of the season. Those were back in October. We didn't see quite this form, but he looked like he wasn't far from coming back either. It was a great performance by him, and that wedge shot on the Monday playoff was just incredible. That basically closed it right there.
Yeah, well, that was the interesting the dynamic between the two, because Jason wasn't very accurate on his tee shots on the par 5, and Alex was. So Jason basically kept laying up, and that worked for him, while Alex kept going for it on 2, and it was working for him until the last shot on Monday. Would you have gone with that strategy, Joel? Do you think that was the right strategy for Alex, or do you think it would have been better off for him to just, play the conservative route?
I don't know. I mean, he saw Day, with another poor drive on 18. He was in good position. Probably just thought that was his best chance. So might as well. I admire the kind of go for it attitude. It looked like he was going to be a great shot. The line was right. Came up a little short and rolled back. I don't think he should regret that. At least not that. He might regret how he played the back nine on Sunday. I didn't see much in the playoff. I thought he held together really well. He's making clutch putts. Didn't really make any big mistakes until that water shot.
Did the weather change much? Because it really was interesting how nobody can do anything for a couple hours on the back nine, and then Day and Noren get into this playoff, and all of a sudden it's a birdie fest. I mean, did the weather change or something like that at the end of the day?
Not really. I mean, it got colder. The wind was kind of picking up at different times. Yeah, that was weird. They were you had 4 people at 11 under, and then just one hole after another, they just all kept dropping at the same time. I mean, a little bit more, they may have gotten Keegan Bradley back into that thing.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of that's probably just late nerves and all that. It did seem like there was a bunch of shifts in wind, but nothing that should have had quite that effect. I mean, neither Day or Noren made a birdie on the back nine in regulation, and then they had several birdies, in the playoff. I don't know.
All right, and so we'll talk about some of the other players that will be lining it up this week. What do we know about a player that almost finished in the top 10, Jeff, Lanto Griffin? What do we know about Lanto Griffin? I know that he won on the Web.com tour last year, didn't he?
He did. He's one of the Web.com graduates, and just kind of working his way through learning the PGA Tour. I don't recall much of his graduate history. I don't know if he's a West Coast guy, and maybe that helps him out in this part of the year. But he, in fact, now that I've got it up, he is a California guy, so probably knows the courses down there in Southern California a little bit better, and was able to take advantage of it.
You mean you didn't have him in your fantasy pool last week? You didn't know about him? Surprised. That's golf.
I knew
for you.
of him. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a little bit more. To learn a little bit more. When Andrew Landry led the first round of the U.S. Open.
Yeah. Even more than a Web.com tour win. And so we'll find out more if Lanto can maybe get on the first page of a leaderboard again real soon. I think that'll definitely get everybody noticed. What did you think about Tiger, Joel? He did make the cut, so that was something we talked about. Was Tiger going to make the cut? He did. He struggled to make it, but he was able to get it done with a birdie on the last, and then he played all weekend. And, all things considered, I mean, for somebody who was dead last in the field in accuracy from the tee, the fact, and everybody had talked about how poor his short game had been in his previous return to health. Fact is, his short game was really good. It was just it was that second shot that killed him all throughout the tournament, and of course, it didn't help any as well that he just was never in position off the tee either.
And his drives were just absolutely abysmal, and he still finished T23. I mean, it's pretty impressive that he was able to grind it out after all that, and he had so many shots out of the rough, and his back still held up. We didn't see any point where he looked like he was in pain. So that was very encouraging. Short game was on. I mean, just horrible. He had like 3 rounds, I think, out of only 3 hit fairways. I mean, that'll probably come back to him, I imagine. But it's hard to it was very encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely.
See him at the next one.
Yeah, I mean, he was a hot, front 9, back 9 away on the weekend from actually being in contention, Jeff. I mean, and it wasn't. I mean, who's going to get hot on that course anyway? So, considering how well he played under the conditions of, his poor tee shots, he played very well.
From the second shot and in, he played very well.
Yeah.
But I was sitting here kind of ruminating. Remember a couple of months ago when whoever it was saying, Tiger was hitting it past Dustin Johnson?
Yep.
Is it possible that Dustin Johnson was on the adjacent fairway when Tiger hit it?
I don't know what was going on. He was in the Bahamas, wasn't he? So that has something to do with it.
Something like that.
Yeah, the Bahamas.
And maybe that has to do with with being in front of people. And now the shots count.
Well, the fairways are a lot
like
smaller.
Tiger Woods.
Yeah. But I think that's what it is. It's definitely the conditions of being in a. I mean, everybody's going to go through it. The butterflies, the competition. It may be easy for us to kind of say, "Oh, come on, can't you just relax, Tiger? Just make believe you're at the Bahamas." It's easy for us to say on TV.
It's one of those things, honestly, where we sit here and say, Tiger, you have won 14 major championships. Yeah. You know pressure of a major championship like no other.
Yeah.
And yet, we also probably need to realize that the last of those 14 major championships was 9.5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And his life has flipped upside down in those 9.5 years, from injury to family issues to scandal to legal issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of those things leaves a little bit of a scar. And that's why older golfers really, I think, do struggle with pressure, because there's scar tissue that you don't have when you're coming out on tour at 23.
When are we going to see him next?
Next week at the Genesis, 2 weeks from now at the Genesis Open at Riviera.
Why? What's next week?
Pebble Beach.
Okay. All right. So before we get into previewing this week's event, Joel, Haotong Li, what a huge day for him in the final round at the Dubai Desert Classic. Winning once, last year, a couple years ago, was one thing. But when you're able to win for the second time and you do it in a really good field, in a big event, and you do it going toe-to-toe with Rory McIlroy, who I'm sure everybody thought was going to break through and get a win. That was impressive. And this kid now is somebody to really watch. Maybe his time is here.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly looked the part. Being able to gun down Rory like that on the back nine, and he was just making one clutch putt after another. And we saw a little bit of what he could do at the Open last year. Yeah, he seems that pretty much all his stats are trending positively. This year's stroke average is down at 68.5 where he is. He's hitting more fairways. He looks good. And as of yesterday, I thought you can still get 80-1 odds for him to win the Masters, which he's unlikely to do. But if you like him enough, 80-1 odds, that probably won't be able to do that in the future the way he's been looking. And that's great for China's golf, too, because they've not embraced the game very well over the years. They've had a history of shutting their courses down, and the past regime thought it was a waste of water, that kind of thing.
Who said
what?
Too,
that the last...
Somebody said a waste of what? Who was that?
Like, Mao Zedong or one of them closed a lot of golf courses because they thought it was a waste of water.
Oh, okay.
Like having to
you might be right.
Now, how many events as opposed to agrarian pursuits? Yeah.
What do they play in? What events do they have in China?
The Shenzhen.
Shenzhen. Yeah. Okay, yeah, they've got that. They've that in
the
tennis
HSBC
too.
Champions.
Oh, and the HS. Okay, all right. Is that the one that he won? What did he win? CIMB
That was the Shenzhen last year.
Shenzhen. That was the one he won.
I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I believe that's the one he won.
No, it was the China Open.
The Volvo China Open.
Yeah, the Volvo China Open.
Oh, okay. And it was their Open. I couldn't remember which one was their Open.
Okay, but anyway,
yeah,
he's legit.
I mean, he was making one putt after another. He just looked like he's definitely not too big for the moment. To stare down Rory like that.
That's big.
Definitely one to look at going forward.
And Rory looked fine, right, Jeff? No reason to think that Rory's ready, right? He's ready to kick butt.
Haotong Li went and got it.
Yep.
Took it from Rory McIlroy.
Yep.
And even McIlroy says, if you had told me that I'd have 2 top 3 finishes in my first 2 starts, I probably would have taken it, except for the way they actually went down.
Sure.
So he's disappointed, but he's on the cusp of winning again, just kind of like Jason Day was, and it shouldn't be all that long. By the way, for those 80-1 odds on Haotong Li, if you're into trends,
Okay.
each of the previous two winners of the Dubai Desert Classic went on to win a green jacket. Sergio did it last year. Danny Willett did it the year before.
Danny Willett.
And also about Chinese golfers, don't forget that they also have the number one golfer in the women's world rankings now in Shan Fang.
It really is amazing how things have fallen off for Danny Willett. There really is
injury was a big thing to do with it this past year. He had shoulder issues that really hampered him through the middle of the year. He is starting, and I put the emphasis on starting to piece things back together.
Okay. All right. We'll keep an eye on him because he's so talented, and we thought that was the beginning of superstardom. But it happens. He was going to take some time off anyway after the Masters, right? That's when he was having his first child, correct? I think he was taking some time off right after that anyhow.
There was that. There was the fact that, you're just trying to get used to the atmosphere of being a major champion.
Yep.
His brother did him no help ahead of the Ryder Cup when he wrote a comedic or a satirical column that fell completely flat.
Mm-hmm.
And, a few months after that, his shoulder went out. Mm-hmm. Not a good 2 years for Danny Willett after Augusta 2016.
All right, so let's talk about this week's event, the Waste Management Phoenix Open, the greatest show on grass, TPC Scottsdale. And what do we know about – look, I guess if the best way of trying to figure out this golf course is just, when we talk about the type of player that will have success at a golf course or struggle at a golf course, it's pretty easy. We could just use Hideki Matsuyama as an example because this has been incredible. Last 4 trips here. He's only played here 4 times, right?
That's correct.
And he's 4th, 2nd, 1st, and 1st. And he won the last 2 in a playoff over Fowler and Simpson. So what is it about this golf course that fits his eye then, Jeff? And then what are we expecting? You got the crazy crowd, so I'm sure that comes into play a little bit. You got to be able to roll with it. What else? What about the course in general?
Well, I think you make a very good point about the crowds. Is you have to be able to play not only in front of a large crowd, crowds that you would typically see at a major championship, but this is the most raucous venue on the PGA Tour, especially as you go down the closing stretch. And not only do we talk about Thunderdome at number 16, which has 20,000 seats and expanding, completely ringing a 163-yard par 3. But now they've started to do the same at number 17, where there's which is a drivable par 4, and so that type of drama that can get fans into the action. So I think you've got to be able to hold your nerve in front of the huge and loud crowds. There's hardly any rough to speak of. It's the desert. Not that it's a pro-am, but it's Northeast Scottsdale, and so there's not a whole lot of rough. You can be a little wayward off the tee, but you've got to be able to play very good second shots, and hit your greens in regulation and get close to the hole. The last 3 years, the average proximity to the hole on the approach shot has actually started to decrease even more and more.
Okay. And because, you look at the players that have won here, and you can't figure anything out by looking at the players themselves. More and more talented players have started to come here recently. But, we've seen bombers, we've seen, accurate golfers. We've seen them all. Long shots, favorites. It's very hard to tell a pattern just by the name of the champions here. So, I mean, I don't know. So pretty much there really is no tip that you can give anybody for a particular style of golfer, correct? Right?
Pretty much, other than how do you play in the spotlight? And, and there are really two kind of guys that are able to do that. There are the showmen, like a Mickelson, who is one of a handful of 3-time champions in Phoenix, or you've got the guy who just seems impervious to it, like a Matsuyama, who has won the last 2.
Or you've got the guys like Kevin Stadler or Mark Wilson that didn't even think they were going to win anyway, and they just don't care. And there is no pressure. So go ahead, Joel.
Oh, so Matsuyama. I mean, last week he had the lowest round of anyone, or tied for the lowest round of anyone in the field, and he was in the Tiger group the last day. I mean, he can handle that circus atmosphere. He's maybe this is the luck of English, or he just is able to seems able to put up with it really well.
All right. Well, by the way, 10 of the last 11 Phoenix Opens have been decided by 1 stroke, including 5 playoffs. I am starting to get the feeling, my friends, that this year we're going to get a U.S. Open playoff. The way this year is going.
I'd be all for a Monday at Shinnecock Hill.
Yeah, the way this year is going, if we're going to have because we haven't had one in so long, if we're going to have a playoff at the U.S. Open, this is going to be the year. So, all right, Jeff, you've got the first pick, right?
I do.
Coming off the win, too. So, by the way, taking a look at our you guys are still, now, Jeff, you're still the fantasy champ right now with 15 top 5s and 4 runner-ups in your picks since the season started. We're going to get into our 12th event, and now you've got your second win. I'm the only guy in single digits with missed cuts, too. There you go, with 9 missed cuts, couple of WDs. So the combination there. Meanwhile, I've got 3 wins, and I am in the plus category, but I also have the least amount of top 5s or runner-ups between the two of you. And then, Joel, you're finding out how difficult it is to repeat.
Yeah.
So, come on, Joel. You got to get going now.
I had Rahm last week. I thought that was about as safe as you could get, Rahm, at that tournament, the way he's been playing.
Yeah, he hit that ball in the water, and that changed everything.
He didn't even beat Tiger.
No, he did not. Nope. And Phil was also kind of disappointing once again, but we'll be talking about Phil a little bit. So, Jeff, you've got the first pick. The odds on now, I love this. We talked about this the last couple of years, that with all these great golfers, it's so awesome because the odds you wind up getting good odds with really good players. And this is a prime example because this is a really good field for this event. We've got Matsuyama, Spieth, Rahm, Thomas, and Fowler in this event. And because of that, nobody right now as of today is under 9-1. So that is beautiful. Of course, that doesn't make it any easier to pick somebody to win because there are so many good players, not only the top players, but there are a lot of other good long shots as well that are on the board to like this week. So this is going to be a really hard week to handicap. But you got Matsuyama and Spieth as the co-favorites right now. And then Spieth has played here a couple times. He's got a couple top 10s. Rahm has played here a couple of times. He's a local guy, so they'll be rooting for him. He was 5th a few years ago. He's 10-1. Then you go to Justin Thomas and Ricky at 14-1. Thomas has missed his first 2 cuts here. Missed his last 2 cuts here. And Ricky, of course, had the playoff loss in 2016, 4th last year, runner-up about 8 years ago, and everything in between, and not so great. And so those are your top guys: Matsuyama, Spieth, Rahm, Thomas, Fowler, between 9 and 14-1. So I would be pretty confident that you're going to take one of those guys.
Well, the great thing is you listed 5 guys, and the way this rotation goes, I will get a chance at 2 of those guys, and you have a chance at 2 of those guys.
That is true.
And if you pass, then Joel will get a chance at 2 of those guys. So it's really top heavy. and maybe for good reason. I mean, this is a really good group, and it used to be that I think there was a time as Phoenix exploded in terms of not only people but decibels. The old time golfers weren't used to that, and they started to shy away from Phoenix. Now we've kind of gone far enough into the new generation that they embrace.
Yep.
And that's why we have Fowler and we have Rahm and we have Spieth, guys that like that kind of spotlight, like kind of being in that atmosphere, and so that makes it really cool. And the quality has just gone up really here in the last 5 years. So it's a good group. It's a very top heavy group, and I just find it very difficult. And you've been with me long enough to know that I have a hard time picking guys to repeat, and much less picking guys to three-peat. And last time we had a three-peat on the PGA Tour was Steve Stricker at John Deere in 2009, 10, and 11. So it's been a while, and for a guy like Tiger Woods, it's before that era. So that's why I shy away from Matsuyama, even though he plays well in this atmosphere, and he played reasonably well at Torrey Pines. But the other guy that seems to be playing very well, we keep saying he's going to win here soon. He's going to win here soon. He did win in the Bahamas, and he plays well in Phoenix and had no hangover last year after the disappointing playoff loss the year before. I'm going to go with Ricky Fowler this week as my top pick.
Well, I'm actually not going to shy away from a three-peat then.
Okay.
For me, it was down to two players, Fowler and Matsuyama. Of course, me picking Fowler is no shock, especially again, he has played really, really well here with those two runner-ups and three top fives. So, and Ricky, even though he didn't play well last week, we had talked about his previous Torrey Pines visits weren't very good at all either. He's now missed four straight missed cuts or something like that at Torrey Pines. So maybe that wasn't a big surprise. Not that he was awful. He just missed the cut by a few shots. But you would think that here it's different because he's been better here recently. So he's been able to miss the cuts at Torrey and then come here and play well. So no reason to think after missing the cut at Torrey this week that he won't come back and play well again this week. So yeah, at 14-1, I think Ricky, if anybody out there is looking for a good play with some of these top guys, I definitely like Ricky as one of the top two out of these five. But I'm going to take Matsuyama since you took Ricky at 9-1. I know it's really hard to win three straight, and I get all that. But I'm also not going to shy away from somebody that's played here 4 times and has been in the top 4, all 4. So if he can just continue to play like that again, then I know I'll be in contention, and that's what I'm looking for. Hey, records are made to be broken, so maybe this is the year that we get another three-peater. What do you think about all that, Joel, between Matsuyama and Fowler? If you had a choice between the two, which you don't, who would you pick?
Probably Fowler, although I've been burnt a whole bunch of times this year on champions, repeat champions. I Justin Thomas twice and Rahm last week. So I'm starting to, put back a little bit there. But Matsuyama did look great in the tournament last week, although he hasn't quite been there. I just like Fowler's history here a little better. I think he's going to be pretty motivated after that missed cut last week. All
right. Are you going to take either Spieth, Rahm, or Thomas?
I am not. I'm actually going to go a little bit different here. There's one guy here. I don't think he's the next best player available, but I think his odds are just too juicy to turn down. He was at 40-1 earlier today. Now he's down to 33, and that's Webb Simpson, who was the runner-up last year, and he's been playing just consistently great since then. He's done well at this tournament before. He wasn't. He had a little trouble at the career builder, but he was just kind of shaking off some rust after the layoff. Finished 64-65 last year. Those odds I think are just too good for him. I don't want to risk someone taking him before my second pick.
Well, yeah, I mean, with Webb. Again, from him to go down to 33-1 on a Tuesday shows you that people do like Webb Simpson this week, and for a valid reason. No doubt that at some point he was going to be off the board, so you made the smart move. Again, you're looking at a guy that's got 5 top 15s here, and 4 top 10s, and then the playoff loss last time here. And he's playing pretty good. Now, he didn't have a great showing his last time out, but that's okay. I mean, overall, he's playing well. We've talked a lot about Webb Simpson. Jeff's taken Webb Simpson an awful lot, and you probably stole Jeff's pick. Did he?
I didn't think he was going to last to the third round, though.
Yeah, so I think that answers that question. So all right, so we all like Webb Simpson. That's a pick for everybody out there. 33-1 sounds like a really good play. And even though he dropped from 40 to 33-1, that is still those are still good odds. All right, Jeff. So you're next. You can go with Spieth, Rahm, or Thomas as your second pick, which is pretty nice. Or you can go and you've got Leishman at 30-1. And Mark Leishman is somebody that is, of course, playing a lot better golf over the last 6 months. 8th last week, 24th year last year. Alex Noren, how's he going to play after the disappointing loss last week? I don't know if Alex – has Alex ever played here?
This is his debut in Phoenix. This is going to be his debut at a lot of places because this is the first year that he has taken out full membership on the PGA Tour.
Okay. So last year, what was it, part-time then? Is that what it was? He kind of got his feet wet?
I think last year he really only competed in the WGCs and maybe took 1 or 2 sponsor exemptions, but he was not a full member.
Okay. I know. I guess maybe the WGCs is what it was, because I know that we hadn't normally seen Alex play, and maybe just a combination of playing at the Players. I know he played at Wells Fargo, Bay Hill. I think so. He probably that's probably what it was. He played that Florida swing thing, and then also played the rest of the year as far as the WGCs and the majors, and that was more than we've seen him play. So now full time. Okay, good for him. But then JB Holmes, by the way, is also right in that same odds area. He's got 2-time champ coming off the solid week last week. I won't say finish. And then also Tony Finau, Daniel Berger in that same category. We do have a jump, and that's it, because I just named every player that is under 50-1. So except Benny On has moved down to 45-1 now, and that's it. So I guess that's what you get when you have all those other top players where you're not going to get really low numbers. It's going to be compensated, and then what is it? I think so. It's a pretty small group of guys, which is what I said at the very beginning when I said there's a lot of good long shots in this field.
Yeah, there really are. I mean, you take a look. You've got the top 5, and the highest odds of those is Justin Thomas at 14-1, and then the very next guy, the 6th guy, is his odds are double. Daniel Berger at 28.
Yeah, Kuchar actually dropped to 45-1 under the 50-1 line that we have, so keep that in mind. And JB moved up to 40-1. So the odds are moved up a little bit since I looked at them this morning. And what was it? Berger's down to 28-1 now. Is that what it is?
That's correct.
Okay, so he's down to 28-1. So so there has been movement since earlier this morning. But you going with any of those guys?
I am. I'm going to stay with the elite group for one more pick, and either any of the 3. I mean, how could you go wrong with Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, or Jon Rahm? It's just a question of who fits what better. Justin is not agreeing with Phoenix, and maybe that's just a blip, but he has struggled his last 2 times in Phoenix. Jordan Spieth probably not built as well for this type of course because there's no rough and it doesn't take advantage of his strengths. So I'm going to go with the local guy who is running a little bit of a hot streak, cooled off to a certain extent last week, but he's now back in his own element in his own backyard, Jon Rahm at 10-1.
Yeah, Rahm, you would think, is also a good pick. He had one hiccup, which was last week, and again, he got off to a good start, and he did look like Rahm was going to be the one to beat over the weekend, but what was that? That he hit the ball in the water when? Was that late Friday? Second round? Was that when he hit the ball in the water? I think so, right?
Might have been.
You had him last week, did you, Joel?
Yeah, I think he finished 77-75. I'm not sure what hole it was.
All right, I think
he looked great until that third round, and he just kind of both front 9s on the weekend he had bogey streaks of 3 or more
Yeah,
in a row.
then okay. Well, all right. Well, bottom
Yeah.
line is he had a bad weekend, and but he is going to be supported here. Probably only, you think who's going to support more, Rahm or Mickelson?
Definitely Mickelson.
Well, yeah, Mickelson is the favorite son. And I don't. Now maybe if Rahm can win in Phoenix, that would start to change that dynamic. But in a sense, this is the house that Phil built.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to roll the dice again on my second choice. I rolled the dice with a three-peat, but I'm going to roll the dice with a player who almost won last week, and that's Alex Noren. So I will go ahead and take Noren. What the heck? Maybe I'll get a Kyle Stanley win out of him, and even though he hasn't played here before, but we know how good he is, and I'm going to look at that as a positive sign for Alex because it wasn't like he was playing as good as he had played about a year ago. So I think this is a good opportunity for him to get his confidence back, especially since he's never won on the PGA Tour before, and I'll use that to my advantage, hopefully. And just got to get off to a good start, more than likely. So 33-1, Alex Noren is my second pick. Joel, who are you going to go with? Is your second pick?
Well, speaking of Arizona State guys, but I still have this in my head. Does anyone know why Pat Perez is not here this week? I mean, he's been playing great. It seems like it would be, if he was going to play the tournament, it'd be the best time to do it. As a local guy.
Yeah, I guess the trip they made last week.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm sure it does. Especially for a guy at his age. I mean, this is Pat's home, Scottsdale, and there were years where he would play every event on the West Coast. In fact, he did that for 6 or 7 consecutive years. He didn't miss a West Coast event at all. But he has taken out full membership on the European Tour this year. And so he played Abu Dhabi, he played Dubai. Now he's got a long flight back. We know that even though his shoulder is surgically repaired, he still has to be cognizant of it. And it is odd that he would choose to sit this one out, but he is.
Well, I will. I think Spieth is kind of standing out there to me a lot at 9-1. Hasn't been super impressive in his first few starts this year, but he finished in the top 10 both times he's played this tournament. He always seems to be in the mix everywhere. I think he's the last of that group up near the top that I really like. So I'll go with him.
All right, so you're going to head back around, and after you went with Mini Longshot Simpson, you'll go back and take advantage of the fact that Jordan Spieth is still available with the 6th pick of the show. So that's not bad. So you might have worked something out there at 9-1. He's still 9-1, right?
Yes.
All right.
He is.
All right. So next up, Jeff, you got Fowler and Rahm.
And do I just go ahead and clean the slate of those top tier guys? Because Justin Thomas is still sitting there on the board, and the only thing is that he doesn't seem to agree all that well with TPC Scottsdale. Or do I go in a different direction? And if I do, what's the direction I go? That's kind of the question. Is do I just take what's obvious? Because in that group, from 28 to 45, I don't know that there's any better pick out there than Justin Thomas, who can go through hot and cold streaks, and and we know his overall talent. And so it's going to be a week of short odds for me, but I can't let Justin Thomas sit on the board. Would you guys, if you were sitting in my spot?
I could see it both ways, because getting Justin Thomas at 14-1 is pretty nice. I mean, that's like, wow. I mean, who would have thought that just a month ago, that you can get Justin Thomas in any event at 14-1? Now, of course, we know why that's happening, because he's not playing his best golf. But is there anything really wrong with 14th at Sony? No.
Except we're comparing it to last year.
Yeah, that's why he's 14-1. I think the real thing is probably the comparison and the 2 missed cuts here the last 2 years. but that's what you're getting. That's what you're taking advantage of with those odds. So he does have the 17th in 2015. So it's not like he hasn't played well here before. So yeah, it is. I mean, look, fact is, there's a lot of good players here, but if you have no reason to jump the gun on the long shots just yet, as we mentioned, the remaining players left under the long shot category, you got Kuchar, On, Berger, Finau, Holmes, Leishman. And I don't know. I mean, I know you've taken Leishman a lot, so how come you didn't like Leishman here?
Just I don't see the desert course as being as fitting as a coastal course where the wind's going to kick up.
Even for an Aussie.
Even for an Aussie, especially for an Aussie.
Okay. And I'm actually surprised a little bit that JB Holmes' odds actually went up, considering how he played last week. And he's got 2 wins here.
And that he's won twice in Phoenix, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a little bit surprised, unless people are just personally staying away from him. Maybe they're just upset at him, so they don't want to bet him. But that's, you can't let your biases get in the way. All right, so I've got Matsuyama and Noren, and I guess do I jump the gun over to the long shots, or do I go after Daniel Berger? I'll go ahead and go after Berger at 28-1. I've been taking him a lot recently, and he's been playing okay. I mean, he's not playing great, but he's playing okay. He's got 3 straight top 15s, and he does have 2 top 10s in 3 years, the last 3 years here. So, and you would think a guy like Berger, this atmosphere might be okay for him, and maybe that's why he's got a couple top 10s, Joel.
Yeah, he's been playing better lately too. I think he's tied 11, tied 14 his last 2 times out. He does seem to have an attitude where he would probably like the spotlight.
All right,
that's a good pick. Have a look at him.
You've got Simpson and Spieth. Who's your third pick?
There's a couple of long shots I sort of wonder if I should be getting a jump on, because this is such a good group of long shots this week. But yeah, I'm going to go with the sentimental pick and take Phil Mickelson at 45-1. He's been not good the last 2 times out, but even he played this tournament every year since '91. Tied for 16th last year, 11th the year beforehand. He knows the course really well. Obviously, they all love him there, and he was playing well early in the season. Hopefully, having a little struggles the last 2 weeks, maybe he's figured that out. The 45-1 for a 3-time winner who's played the course as nice as he is. I think it's worth the third pick.
All right, so he's also just recently dropped below the 50-1 mark, down to 45-1, along with On and Kuchar. And I don't know. I mean, with Phil, Jeff, a couple things. First of all, he hasn't had a top 10 here the last 4 years. Of course, he's getting older, and I just don't like his game right now. Something's. What do you think is off about his game specifically?
Well, I think that he's struggled off the tee as well. We saw him in, at least 2, maybe 3 situations just this past week at Torrey Pines, where he was signing a glove for somebody because it was headed off into the crowd. So I think that he's still trying to find a driver that he likes. And we know that he's put a new driver into play trying to improve that, and it hasn't worked quite yet. Here's an interesting thing with Phil, too. He is at number 49 in the world ranking.
Yep.
He is potentially 1 week from falling out of the top 50 for the first time since the mid-1990s.
Maybe that works to your advantage, Joel. Maybe Phil will put an end to that nonsense and make sure he does not hit 50 or 51. Because, I'm looking down here, and his last year-end rank outside top 50 was 1992.
Wow.
So, but he's got a whole year to make sure he avoids that. All right, but Mickelson is in the books, and I guess if you're going to take Phil Mickelson this year, this would be one of the events to take him at.
Absolutely.
Especially since you're getting 45 to 1 on him, Joel. All right. Phil's also somebody to root for. Throw a couple of bucks on him. You can make $100. So why not? That's a deal for me. All right. So, Jeff, you've got the first long shot of the field, and you've lost 3 potential ones with Mickelson off the board anyway. But Kuchar, you're one of your boys who finished 9th here last year and is coming back from Abu Dhabi a couple of weeks ago. And Benny On, who was 6th last week at Dubai and 6th here last year. I know Benny On was in contention over the weekend to win this thing last year. So, anyway, you can't pick those guys anyway. Shane Lowry, is he still 50 to 1, Shane Lowry? Did he also go underneath the number? I think he was 50 to 1. No, he moved up to 66 to 1. So he's gone the opposite direction. Shane Lowry, that surprises me. He's played pretty well here. But anyway, who do you like? There's some really good long shots. I mean, Ryan Palmer is fresh off of that playoff loss. So it's nice to see his game is trending in the right direction. He's been runner-up here twice. You got Harris English starting to play good golf for the first time in a couple of years. He's had some good moments here. He's an interesting long shot. Keegan Bradley's got a couple of top 5s over his last 4 events. We haven't seen him win in about, 5 years. And a bunch of other interesting long shots. So who do you like? There's a lot to choose from.
Well, and you mentioned the guy I'm going to take, and he was at the top of my long shot list all the way. I was kind of afraid he was going to get snapped up at the end of the 3rd round, but I've said it many times and played it many times when he was doing really well, and looks like it's starting to happen again. Ryan Palmer is a streaky player, and when he's on that kind of streak, you jump on him. And so the fact that he was in the playoff last week, he has now secured his card for next year. His wife is cancer-free. He's gotten over the mourning process from the death of his dad. A lot of that stuff has been cleared from over his head now, and he can go and kind of freewheel it the rest of the year. And when he's on, he's really on, and he's played well in Phoenix. So Ryan Palmer is my top long shot.
Yeah, it's been that long since we've actually been able to use that analysis. I remember we used to use that all the time a few years ago about whenever Ryan Palmer gets going, one of us was going to take Ryan Palmer because that he was very, very and quite possibly still is. So he's one of those guys that when he's trending in the right direction, which he can't be trending any better right now after the runner-up last week and the 2 runner-ups here on this golf course, is a good combination at 55 to 1. All right. Palmer was definitely on my short list. I've got a few other guys on my short list, including I think Scott Piercy is a good long shot. Piercy is also trending in the right direction now that he's starting to play more after some time off. 6th last time at Career Builder. He's got several top 10s here. So he's somebody I was considering. Adam Hadwin's trending in the right direction on this golf course. Kevin Chappell is going through a nice run. 16 top 35s in his last 20 events, including, of course, the win. Last time out, 6th at Career Builder. Just don't like the way he's played at this golf course, and maybe he just doesn't feel comfortable here, so that's why I'm going to avoid him. But I'm going to go ahead and take a guy that you like to take, Jeff. And let me see if his odds have stayed the same. They have. I'm going to go ahead and take Cameron Smith at 80 to 1. He's a young kid, so why won't he like to play here? I don't know. I mean, maybe he will. What do you think about that, Joel? I mean, this is a very talented player. He's been acclimating to the States over his last 3 events, all top 20s. He's played this event a couple of times, and he played it a little bit better last year than the first time. So that's a good sign. What about Cameron Smith?
That was actually who I had pegged for my first long shot.
Really?
So you got that one right in front of me. He's
Wow.
top 20 in all 5 events he's entered this year. He just looks comfortable out there. It seems crazy, 80 to 1 odds as good as he looks.
That was the other thing I was thinking about. I was like, wow. I mean, this kid is really talented, and he's 80 to 1. That was the deciding factor for me because there were so many good long shots that I just figured, I mean, I can't not take this kid at 80 to 1. So interesting that there's a lot of good long shots, and then we both had the same player. So I'm not sure that's a good thing or not. Okay, Joel, you've got Simpson, Spieth, and Mickelson. So you've got three major champs. So are you going to take a fourth major champ with your official long shot? And what are you going to do?
I am not. Actually, I'm taking someone here who doesn't really have much of a good past at this course, but he's definitely not the golfer that he was before. He's already won this month already. It's Patton Kizzire at 66-1, leading the FedEx Cup standings. He's had 2 wins since November. Didn't do great at the Career Builder, but outside of that, he's looked good everywhere this year. It doesn't look like I don't think the crowds are going to be too distracting for him.
All right, Patton Kizzire. I was actually the only thing that I kind of went away from was not that I should worry about his previous 2 years here, because he just nowhere near the same player he is now. But yeah, that was somebody because of the odds, just like we talked about with Cameron Smith. I was like, why? I mean, come on, the guy's won twice already. He's 66-1. So I was what I was looking at, but yeah. The 80-1 Cameron Smith thing was we both liked Cameron Smith, Jeff, at 80-1. So I don't know if he was on your board or not, but he's off the board.
He was on my board, but he was a little bit down on the selection list.
All right. So now, if anything happens to Fowler, Rahm, and Thomas, that's some threesome. I don't think that's going to happen again all year.
Probably not.
No.
So you got to take advantage of it, right?
Because when those guys are playing in majors, we'll all be gobbling them up. What are you going to do with your alternate in case one of them doesn't fire on Thursday?
Here is where I think perhaps, and I guess I'm kind of going to the top of the board again, the next man up. But even though Daniel Berger has struggled of late, he's also started to turn it around a little bit. 2 top 15s in Hawaii.
You missed
you
that
did
one.
take Berger.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, then next.
But why did you like Berger? Tell us why you like Berger.
Because he's started to turn it around, and he's got 2 top 15s in Hawaii, and he's played well at Scottsdale with a pair of top 10s. So
yeah,
certainly a guy that you were very prescient in taking.
Yeah, so, and again, another player that as Joel mentioned too, that you would think would enjoy the conditions, the surroundings.
Yes, absolutely. So somehow I experienced a brief outage, and that's why I was a little discombobulated there.
Okay.
But we're back, and so I will put Leishman in that alternate slot now.
You will go with Leishman. Okay.
Yeah.
So Leishman at 30-1. Yeah, because we are the pickings are slim now with the low amount of non-long shot players that we can only choose from. Unless they all run out at some point this year. If that ever happens, then we're forced to take a long shot. But who do we have left? We have, let's see, Holmes, Finau, On, Kuchar, and is that it? Did anybody else slip under 45-1? No? Okay.
That's it. Unless you dip into the 50.
Well, I'm not allowed to. Let's see. All right. So I'll go with JB. Why not? JB, 40-1. And I will take a guy that is definitely comfortable on this golf course with a couple of wins. And he was just 6th a couple of years ago. He's got 3 top 10s overall here in his career. Okay, so JB is my alternate pick. Next up is Joel. If anything happens to Simpson, Spieth, or Mickelson, who's your alternate? And you only have Finau, On, Kuchar, and that's it to choose from?
I like to take Finau on these things, but I just don't like his history in this event. And Matt Kuchar opened up with a 64 last year, finished tied 9th, and I mean, this is his debut for 2018. He's going to be turning 40 by the end of the season. I'm hoping there's probably going to be some sense of urgency in there to get some more wins. He's got plenty of top 10s, but not a lot. Doesn't win a lot, especially on the major. thing. But yeah, he played well last year. Alternate, I think, good odds.
No, absolutely. At this point in the selection situation, absolutely Kuchar's a good pick. With the 9th place finish last year, he's played a couple of top 10s here, and he's got a little time off after his trip back from overseas, and he's still playing good golf since almost winning the Open Championship. All right, Jeff, so final pick, alternate long shot number 2. In case Ryan Palmer does not play, you've got a lot of long shots to choose from. A lot of good ones.
Yeah, some very good ones. But the guy that was actually right behind Palmer on my list is still available, and even though he's Canadian, he's turned out to be something of a desert rat. Where he shot 59 at Palm Springs last year, was third in his return this year. He's got a couple of top 20s in Scottsdale already, and so Adam Hadwin is going to be my second alternate.
Yeah, as I mentioned before taking Cameron Smith, Hadwin was one of the players that I was thinking about. So I like that pick. He's dropped down to 66-1 from 75-1. So, yeah, Hadwin is definitely a player to keep an eye on this week. I'm going to go ahead and take an oldie but a goodie for me. And even though he's coming off a miscut last week, always Schneider-Jans, and he is sitting there at 75-1. I always take a look at players that I may have interest in coming off miscuts to find out career-wise how do they respond from the miscuts. And Schneider-Jans has responded well in his career after miscuts. So I'm not worried about that. Matter of fact, if you just take a look, even recently, he had that miscut at, where did he have it at? He had a couple of miscuts recently, and both of them he rebounded to play pretty well at. So, and a matter of fact, even at the Barracuda last year, he did a miscut, followed that up with a second at Wyndham. And he had a miscut at the Houston Open, followed up with a third at the RBC Heritage. So he's been able to hit a lot of top tens. Maybe he just likes having an extra couple of days off. Who knows? But Schneider-Jans will be my second alternate at 80-1. Joel, who are you going to go with in case Kazire does not play?
I'm going to drop down to triple digits for this one. Emiliano Grillo, I finished 12th last week with 6th tee to green. He's got a couple of good finishes recently. He's 11th in strokes gained off the tee, which I think is probably going to be important here. I think he's going to start being good again at some point here. It could be this week.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about him the last couple of weeks, that his game is starting to get better. He has 2 top 15s in his last 3, so he's not where we know he can be. But, for your second alternate, the long shot at 100-1, why not? Emiliano Grillo. Other players that, and again, there's a lot of long shots. Again, like I mentioned, I think Harris English is a very interesting play. You wonder about Keegan Bradley breaking through. Brendan Steele could be interesting because he's played very well here over his career, and he's in the long shot category. Zach Johnson continues to play pretty consistent with 6 straight top 25s. He has a bunch of top 25s here. He was somebody that I was considering as well. As I mentioned, Scott Piercy was also on my list. And let's see if there was anybody else. How about Brandon Harkins? Harkins, I think, is somebody that might be worth a stab. I know he hasn't won professionally yet, Jeff. But what is he, like 125-1, something like that? He's got 6 top 25s in his last 8 events. That includes 12th last week and 8th at Career Builders. So what do we know about this Brandon Harkins kid that's now at 100-1?
Well, number one, he's not really all that much of a kid. He's 31 years old. He's one of those guys that has worked his way up very slowly through the ranks and finally was able to graduate from the Web.com tour last year. And so one of those guys that really nobody had started to hear of until the Web.com a year ago. But he's started to play very steady. The question is, can he play 4 rounds well enough to put himself into contention on Sunday? That we'll still have to see, but he's a guy from Chino Valley, I believe it is in California. He went to Cal State Chico. That I do remember. So definitely some desert experience there.
All right. And you mentioned Julian Surrey last week. He
Yes.
played well early before faltering late. A couple of interesting players did that, including Hunter Mahan. You know, look, we've talked about Hunter Mahan trying to get back into the swing of things, and he certainly is at least getting off to good starts recently. And maybe that's the first sign of a player getting comfortable again, Joel. So maybe Hunter Mahan is somebody fantasy-wise worth a look this week. He's 250-1, but he won this event before. He's got a bunch of top 10s here. So maybe Hunter Mahan can have a good week and maybe slip into the top 20.
There are several interesting 251 to 1 odds there. Nick Watney right on that list, too, has been in a similar position. Michael Kim was in contention until the last round last week, and he's sitting there at 250 to 1, too. Mahan clearly has something going on mentally. That's just he is getting off to good starts now, and he's looking like he's almost there, and then he just completely bombs the weekend. At some point, I think he's too good to not figure it out again.
Mm-hmm.
But if you need at deep odds like that, and there's some other good ones here too. Austin Cook at 71 to 1. He's been in the top 25 of 6 of 7 events. This one. I don't know if anyone will know this. Does anyone know why Charlie Beljean has a place in this field, but Taylor Gooch is a deep alternate? That doesn't seem right. Gooch has actually been good lately. I'm not sure why he would have been someone to look at if he had actually made the field.
What kind of rules go there, Jeff?
Well, Charlie Belgian is a former PGA Tour winner, and so he does have that sort of status. Plus, he might be in on a type of sponsor exemption because he is also a local. He lives in nearby Mesa, Arizona, and so that may be an invite status for Charlie.
All right, and other notable players to keep an eye on: Kyle Stanley, 2012 champ, is here. Brandt Snedeker trying to get back into the swing of things. He's always played well at this event. But we're still waiting for Brandt to start getting his game going again. Bubba Watson always plays well at this event, but so far he hasn't been able to pick things up either. He's a big long shot. I mean, did you consider Bubba Watson at all, Jeff, considering he's 80-1?
Absolutely, I did, because he's got a familiarity with the whole area until he decided to move back home to Florida.
Yep.
He spent 5 or 6 years living in Scottsdale, and so very familiar with the area, very popular, and we know that he's the type of guy that can handle playing up to a crowd.
Yep.
Sometimes he's overconfident when he does that, but it's certainly not going to make him wilt any. So yeah, I absolutely looked at it. I would say he was 3rd or 4th on my long shot list. And if Palmer and Hadwin had been picked when I didn't have a chance, I would have looked at him much harder.
All right.
I was going to mention that. I mean, who likes attention more than Bubba Watson on tour? That's the kind of place he'll still good at.
There you go. So, hey, at 80-1, throw a buck on Bubba Watson. Not a bad idea. By the way, what's up with Ryan Moore? Because we haven't seen him since Mayakoba, right? And he finished 6th at that event. He's played really well here. He's got a bunch of top 20s. He's, I believe, 80-1. And so any news on Moore? Is he dealing with an injury, right? He had a minor injury situation, Moore? No? Maybe?
I mean, he has had, obviously, just, injury issues throughout a lot of his career, and then it's always taken him time to come back, but we thought that he was doing well coming back, but just not sure if something else has popped up to do that to him.
Yeah, I mean, there was something that was potentially going on. I know he's had some of these injuries over the past year, so maybe he just needed to make sure he took a little time off before he got going again. But hey, he could
Everybody needs their off season.
Yep. and he plays well here. So maybe this is the first event of the year that he actually feels comfortable at. So Ryan Moore may not be a bad idea as well as an 80-1 shot in this group. And that's why we said there's a lot of good, interesting long shots in this list. Even Martin Laird is a deep long shot. He's got 2 top 10s here in the last 3 years. All right, so there you go. Andrew Landry, by the way, is 160-1. So maybe after a week off of stewing from the playoff loss, maybe he'll be ready to get back into the swing of things. The Maybach Championship, by the way, this week, Hao Tung Lee is playing. He's 18-1. Do you think Hao Tung Lee can go double? Joel, think he can go double? Back to back?
I mean, it's not a tremendous field, so maybe. I wouldn't bet on it, but
okay. Yeah, it's not. It isn't a big field.
You got Stenson and Biesberger, Levy.
That's it. Yeah.
Pretty much Jun Hun Wang.
Maybe Abhimanyu or Sullivan may not be bad ideas. They've played pretty well recently.
That'd be awesome if we had a Sunday where it just came down to Lee and Wang going on back and forth. That'd be really cool to see.
Why?
The youth movement there.
Why is that?
Just because they're both brilliantly great, really young players.
Okay, all right. And let's see. Lee Westwood plays. Beef plays. And boy, you can get 100-1 this week on Danny Willett. So, we just have no idea if Danny Willett is just going to pop out of nowhere and win one, or if he's if he's slowly going to. Because I mean, we've seen it happen many times. Players can just out of the blue do nothing, and then they win an event. So maybe Danny Willett wouldn't be a bad idea at 100-1, and you just hope that he does exactly that.
And Austin Connolly at 225-1. What happened to him?
All right. So, Joel, you've got the storylines out on ProGolfWeekly.com. You've got your rankings out. Who's your big bounce back this week? Who's your best bounce back this week?
We're looking at some of those. I mean, Jon Rahm is, which I have him at number 1 in the rankings too, even though I passed on him. That was because of the odds. But yeah, there's some good bounce back candidates with him. I'm interested in seeing what Norn's going to do after the exhausting ending. Ricky, obviously a horrible week, so we're going to see if he can bounce back. There's a lot of good stories there this week. We elaborate on them a little bit in that article, and then there's also my top 10 rankings on there. But yeah, okay. Please check out Pro Golf Weekly. It's ProGolfWeekly.com. You can try to cover all those events this week.
All right, sounds good. So Joel, we'll talk to you again next week. What did you say? Pebble Beach next week?
Pebble Beach, yeah. Pebble Beach.
I have who's going to play next week, Jeff? You'll have your first look report at PGAtour.com to let everybody know who's in the field on Friday. But what do you expect? I mean, do you think we're going to get some of these guys from this week? We usually get Jordan Spieth, right? He goes to Pebble.
Jordan Spieth has become a Pebble Beach regular. Phil Mickelson is a multiple champion at Pebble Beach. Brandt Snedeker has. I don't remember whether he's won the individual portion at Pebble Beach, but I know that he's won the team title there. That's another.
Justin Rose has played there.
I think he's one that has joined of late. He wasn't one that played a lot early, but
maybe we'll see Jason Day too after a week.
Yeah,
off.
I'm not sure what his what his schedule is, and of course everything's a little different now because he did acknowledge in the post playoff interview that he is having back issues, and when things are wrong, he gets shooting pain down both legs. So Jason Day is going to have to be very, very careful about his scheduling. I don't see Jason Day's name in kind of the early headliners here, but I do see Dustin Johnson. I do see Jon Rahm.
Yeah.
We talked about Jordan Spieth. So it will. And oh, wait a minute, I overlooked him. Jason Day right now is signed up. We'll see if that stays by Friday at 5:00.
Okay, so that's next week, and I've kind of soured on the whole Pebble Beach thing over the years because, and that's not because I don't like the event. I don't like the coverage. It's 3 days of like 75% amateurs. So, and they usually don't even show the other golf course. They'll show like highlights or something like that for the other golf course, which is kind of strange because they've done a really good job at other events where if they're on a different golf course, they just go to the next golf course. I mean, why do you think they do that with Pebble, where they don't usually show the other golf course? Is it just because time constraints because they want to get the amateurs in?
I think that may be part of it. I think there's also very much a logistics part of it, where how much more cable do you have to unspool to have it ready at Monterey Country Club or Cypress or the other courses. That all takes a certain amount of extra, and even you notice. I think it was different last week with Torrey Pines North. Because Tiger was there, and they were going to show Tiger at Torrey Pines North. So you know what? They cabled Torrey Pines North. But when you're playing multiple courses, there's a certain amount of equipment that has to be readied and set up, and that's quite an expense even for big networks to put that kind of equipment and manpower into place. And so I think that's always been the case where we're 80% of our coverage at Pebble Beach is going to be at Pebble Beach because that's where all of our cameras are. And if somebody's doing something out at Monterey Peninsula, we'll send a couple of mobile cameras out there and we'll get what needs to be done. But we're not going to go wall to wall at Monterey Peninsula. And I think that's the difference.
All right. Well, there you go. That's the reason why I've kind of frowned from it. Of course, Sunday's Sunday, and that's always fun. But that's next week, Joel. So thanks a lot for your time, and good luck with your picks, and we'll talk to you next week, Joel.
Great, thank you. And also, follow me on Joel J. Cook on Twitter, too, for the latest updates. I'm trying to get more commentary on there. So, yeah, thank you. We'll see you next week for Pebble Beach.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. All right, that's Joel Cook, ProGolfWeekly.com. And, by the way, you've got your Around the Tours report at Prime Sports Network. It's available right now, Jeff. And one of the things that we talked about that's on there that I touched up on earlier was the caddy incident. And you got a little bit more details on that. So was it as ugly as it sounds? Punching? Did he punch the caddy?
No. I mean, he did not punch his caddy. He threw a putter cover at him, and the putter cover smacked him right in the face.
Putter cover.
But the fact is that it happened on live television,
All right.
and certainly was able to be captured and embedded and Twittered, and it was kind of an ugly outburst, especially for a mistake that may not have been a mistake by the caddy. And the argument made by the caddy, you can also find that on social media, is that the rule allows the caddy to pick up a ball in the hazard when it's been established that ball was not going to be played in the hazard. And he says the rules official is the one that made the mistake. And I think there's enough gray area there that might have been the case. So well, I suppose it's, who do you believe, who do you side with? I don't think it's black and white.
Sounds like there was something else going on there, though. So I'm sure that wasn't the only reason
Ryan
why
Gibson
he fired his
was
caddy.
In contention, had a chance to get into a playoff until he hit the ball in the hazard. So that's his fault to begin with.
Yeah.
And so his chili was probably pretty hot at that point. And then when the rules official came in and said, your caddy picked the ball up in the hazard, add 1, now you've dropped from a potential tie for second into solo third place. That costs a Web.com tour player $12,000. That's a lot of money on the Web.com tour. So I think, in that 5 or 10 minute span where things went wrong, that's how it ended. It wasn't pretty.
All right, Jeff. We'll look out for more on that and much more, including updates on all the other tours on Around the Tours report at PrimeSportsNetwork.com. Don't forget also to check out our on-demand shows at iTunes or YouTube under Prime Sports Network. You can follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. And don't forget, for all the other golf coverage, go to ProGolfWeekly.com. We'll see you next Tuesday and every Tuesday right here on the Prime Sports Radio Network for Prime Sports Golf. Enjoy the golf, everybody. We'll see you next week.